Now let's go ahead and put in kind of some boilerplate. We got display flex, we have a gutter property and the gap property being set. Now with the column drop component, we want each item to wrap to a new row when there isn't enough available space in line. So let's set the flex wrap property to wrap. So the next thing we need to do is we need to set how each of the children are going to act inside of our column drop container. So let's go ahead and select each one of the children. And just to make it easier to see what's going on, we're going to add a Dodger blue background. We need each of the children to grow and take up as much room as possible. So we do that with the flex grow property. We're going to set that to 1. And you can see here, they're all growing to take up as much room as possible. And this one will grow and take up the entire width because it's available. The other thing we need to do is we need to set the flex basis. Now, once again, the flex basis says, this is the optimal width that I want you to try to take up. Let's do an exaggerated amount of 500 pixels. You can see because 500 pixels doesn't allow to have more than one item per row, they're taking up the entire column. But if we were to go 200 pixels, you can see we can fit 2 items per row and still meet that optimal flex basis of at least 200 pixels. And then that final one still grows and takes up the entire row. Now, of course, we don't want to hard code these values. We want this a little bit more configurable. So let's set the min item width to 0 pixels by default. And for good hygiene, let's set the min item width to initial. This will allow us to make sure that we don't have values that are being inherited that we don't intend to. So this is the column drop pattern already implemented. There's nothing more we need to do to make it work. But there is a variation of the column drop pattern called where we don't stretch the layout. Let's create that variation. We'll say no stretched columns, and then we'll tell it to go back to the default grow property of 0. Now, you can see they're no longer growing, but we still want that centered look. And so what we do up here is we just say justify content center. And now each of the items will center inside of its row, but it won't stretch and take up the entire row like it did before when we have the no stretch columns. And just to see this in action, if we go to testimonials and we see here no stretch columns, if I remove that and make that not valid anymore, you can see we have the stretch column look. But if we put it back, now we got that centering column drop pattern. So let's remove that Dodger blue because we no longer need it. And that is the way we implement the column drop design pattern.
If you want to keep learning about how to build real-world apps with the latest technologies and other career-related topics, then start right now by subscribing to our channel and liking this video.